स्टडी IQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello, namaskar, namaskara, namaskaram, namaskar. My name is Pooja Divedi. Welcome to my class, The Daily Current Affairs, where you will learn not only about the knowledge and concept-based information of the last 24 hours, but how to tackle preliminary examination, because prelims is becoming an insurmountable challenge, but not for those who are regularly in touch with the current affairs, specifically the prelims questions based on those current affairs. So I formulate the questions so that it can help you getting an understanding of the prelims examination. Now, do not make notes in my class. I just expect you to be mindful whenever I am going through the sections. Just ensure that you know how to tackle prelims. You will get the PDF on my Telegram channel, that is by the name of Pooja Divedi UPSC. If you have any questions regarding this examination, you can connect with me on my Instagram, and I also conduct answer writing sessions on my Telegram channel, so you can become a part of that from that perspective as well. Last time I asked you a question about mini Brazil. That was a practice question. Many of you have answered it correctly, so let's solve that, and later on I'll take the names of those who have answered it correctly. Map Insights is one of the classes that I take, and it is very important for you to understand the mapping section as well. So do visit the StudyIQ IAS English website, and you will find a playlist there. The maps have been given, and you will get an expertise whenever you will continuously go through the mapping sections. I take that on a weekly basis. 4 classes have been taken up. So, which of the following is also known as mini Brazil in India? Mini Brazil, I already told you about the importance of such questions, because whenever in Mann Ki Baat, the Prime Minister says about some things, of course, UPSC will ask you from that perspective. So, Bicharpur, Nadia, Purulia, Dakshin, Dinajpur. The correct answer to this question is, many of you have answered it correctly, it's Bicharpur. Now, Bicharpur is a tribal village, forested village in the Sahdol district of Madhya Pradesh. It is said that every child who is born in Bicharpur, they are born attached with football, as in their legs or their feet have been attached with football because of the immense kicking powers these tribes have. And the Sahdol district here, specifically the Bicharpur, it is inhabited by Gond and Baga tribes. Okay, Gond and Baga tribes. So why is it known as the mini Brazil? Because of the immense craze that it has for football. Other than this, it has also produced 45 national level football players. It all started with Rais Ahmed, and he was coaching the railways team. But when he saw these kids, those who were having immense potential for football, he started training them. Now he's such a good human being that he thought that these children, because of their financial incapacities, they may not be able to travel to some stadium. So he used to visit that village on a regular basis so that he can teach them. So there is your story, a very good story. Now, 2 kids from Bicharpur, Yash Bega and Anidev Singh, these are just 4 and 5 years old respectively. They recently met Narendra Modi ji, and they have been the youngest footballers to meet Modi ji. Moving on. The Indian football team actually qualified for FIFA World Cup, which was held in Brazil in 1950. Many people do not know that, but it is said that they, although they were pitted against Sweden, Italy and Paraguay in the 1950s, there were some issues with respect to the capacities, as in they wanted to play bare feet. It is all rumored, but they wanted to play bare feet, but it wasn't allowed. The official statements was around disagreement over team selection and insufficient practice time. I will take the names of those students who have answered it correctly as the classes progress by the end of this segment. So stay tuned. Now, consider the following statements with respect to Bal Gangadhar Tilak. He established the tenets of the new party to launch passive resistance against the colonial government. The Gita Rahasya was written by him when he was present in the Mandalay jail, and he was termed as the father of the Indian Revolution by Jawaharlal Nehru. So what do we have to see? We have to see how many of the statements given above is or are correct. See, Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji's death anniversary is today. So that is why I have asked you this question. Another thing is that the Lokmanya Tilak Award is being awarded to the Prime Minister of India, and he is the 41st recipient of this award. So that is why it is important for us to know about it. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji, a nationalist, ardent and staunch nationalist, who was also a scholar, a philosopher, he has been known for many things. Specifically, if we talk about establishing the Home Rule League, other than this, signing of the pact with Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So these are the certain things, but he also did great in other fields as well. He established the tenets of new party in order to launch passive resistance when it was decided that Bengal will be divided by Lord Curzon. Then he was the one who propounded the theory of boycotting, to not participate or not buy goods that are supplied by the colonial government. And later on, this was popularized by whom? Mahatma Gandhi. So that is why he is many a times considered the actual propounder of the passive resistance, and this was done through the tenets of the new party. Okay, so first is correct. When he wasn't happy with the moderates took another sort of stance in dealing with the colonial government. He did not want piecemeal legislations. He wanted Swaraj, or the power to govern ourselves. Then came the Surat split, 1907. Now, when the British saw that there is considerable, schism between him and the other nationalists, they took this opportunity, charged him under sedition, and sent him to Mandalay for 6 years. And there he wrote the magnum opus, his magnum opus, that was Gita Rahasya. He also wrote the Orions and many other important books. We'll talk about that. So second is also correct. When he died, as a tribute, Mahatma Gandhi called him the maker of modern India, and Jawaharlal Nehru called him the father of the Indian Revolution. So all these three statements are actually correct. So the correct will be 3 only will be the correct answer. Lokmanya Tilak National Award. This is established by Tilak Smarak Mandir Trust. Since 1983 it has been awarded to those who work for the progress of the nation and to those whose contribution can only be looked upon as remarkable and extraordinary. Also, former presidents Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma and Pranab Mukherjee, former prime ministers such as Indira Gandhi ji, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, Dr. Manmohan Singh ji, they all have been awarded by this particular award. Businessmen N.R. Narayana Murthy as well as Cyrus Poonewala have been also awarded, engineer E. Sridharan among others. So in your prelims examination, it can also be asked about such things. Other than this, make sure that you know about in-depth of some very important nationalist, specifically for after whom we have awards, because UPSC can now go beyond certain very superficial details. They can go in depth. So this all may not be present in some particular book, but government websites are a great way to make sure that you know such things. Do not worry about it. It will take you a lot of time to go through each and every government website, and I am here to save your time from that perspective only. So let's move on and talk about Bal Gangadhar Tilak ji. He was born on July 23rd, 1856 in Ratnagiri, and now he collapsed or passed away on August 1st, 1920 in Bombay. Now it's Mumbai. He was a scholar, mathematician, philosopher as well as an ardent nationalist. He founded the Home Rule League he was the president of the Home Rule League in 1914, and in 1916, of course, the Lucknow Pact was signed between him and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, which paved the way for the Hindu-Muslim unity to fight against the colonial government. He kept his philosophies and his ideas not only up to himself, he also made sure that he was sending the correct message to the masses through 2 weekly newspapers. First one was the Kesari or the Lion, which was both edited and owned by him, and this was in Marathi. When it comes to the Maratha, it was in English. Okay. Also, he was the one who popularized some Hindu festivals such as the Ganesh festivals in 1893 and also the Shivaji festival in 1895. This symbolism was in order to converge all the nationalists together, all the citizens of India together to fight against the colonial government. But also we can say that throughout these times, the Muslims felt aloof because of this. Okay, this wasn't something intended for, but of course it was a result. This was not the intent of Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Now, when Lord Curzon he partitioned Bengal, it was suggested by Bal Gangadhar Tilak that annulment should not be done and also boycott should be done. This is passive resistance. That means resisting the colonial government by something that you can do passively, not by things not associate in any sort of cooperation with the government, with the colonial government. And later on this was popularized by Mahatma Gandhi. Tilak aimed at Swaraj, that means independence, as in we have to govern ourselves. Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. And he wasn't happy with the piecemeal legislations. And of course, I have told you most of these things. See, he wrote the magnum opus Gita Rahasya, which was also the Srimad Bhagavad Gita Rahasya. He discarded the orthodox interpretation of the Gita by saying that it is not the renunciation of the world that is important. It is serving the humanity, serving a cause, which is said in the Gita Rahasya. In 1893, he wrote the Orion, or Researches into the Antiquity of the Vedas. A decade later, he wrote the Arctic Home in the Vedas. Okay, moving on. I have already told you about these two, so let's move forward. With respect to the PM Mudra Yojana, consider the following statements. Mudra loans are available in 4 categories. Monitoring of PMMY progress at the national level is done by the Ministry of MSME, and Mudra will be extending refinance support to regional rural banks for enhancing their liquidity. How many statements given above is or are correct? See, Mudra loans are actually an establishment, we can say, or a system, we can call it, through which refinancing and financing is done for the sectors which want to move forward but they do not have the proper formal channels of loan. And it is available in 3 categories, not 4. Of course, Shishu, Kishore and Tarun. In Shishu, loans up to 50,000. Okay, loans up to 50,000 is available. Up to. When it comes to Kishore, it is from 50,000 up to 5 lakh. Kishore, 50,000 up to 5 lakh. Then Tarun, from 5 lakh to 10 lakh. This is the different categories of loan structure under this Mudra scheme. So first is incorrect. Monitoring is done under Department of Financial Services at the national level, which is under the Ministry of Finance. You can get confused if you do not know such in-depth details, because sometimes we tend to just read the superficial things. We forget about the actual in-depth details. So remember, it is done by the Department of Financial Services at the national level, which comes under the Ministry of Finance. So first is incorrect, second is also incorrect, and Mudra will be extending refinancing support to the RRBs. This is definitely correct. Option 3 is, statement 3 is correct. How many are correct? 1 only will be the correct answer. Recently, it was revealed that over 6 crore 23 lakh loans have been given under this Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana in the fiscal year 2022-23. Now, if we talk about the Mudra Yojana, it is the short form for Micro Units Development and Refinance Agency Limited. It's a financial institution that has been developed by the Government of India for the development and refinancing of micro unit enterprises. This was announced in the Union Budget for fiscal year 2016 to provide funding to non-corporate small business sector, because these are the business sectors which do not have formal channels of loan. They will go to informal money lenders who will exploit them. Also, it wants to ensure that the last mile financial institutions like banks, NBFCs and MFIs are included in it. The biggest bottleneck to entrepreneurship in this category is, of course, the lack of loans. So we have Shishu covering loans of up to 50,000, Kishore 50,000 to 5 lakh and Tarun 5 lakh to 10 lakh. It will be extending refinance support to RRBs, then they will finance the other sectors. Monitoring is done at the state level through SLBC forums, at the national level by Mudra Department of Financial Services, Government of India. This comes under the Ministry of whom? Finance, I told you. Now, with respect to El Nino, which of the statements are not correct? The El Nino event of 1997-98 was the first El Nino event to be scientifically monitored from beginning to end. That means El Nino did occur before that also, but it was for the first time that an understanding was intended of these El Nino. Now, El Nino brings rain to South America. Scientists use the Oceanic Nino Index to predict El Nino. And during an El Nino event, westward blowing trade winds weaken along the equator. We have to point out the incorrect statement. See, El Nino is a part of El Nino Southern Oscillation. That means an unusual warming of the Eastern Pacific waters Let's show you with the help of this particular diagram, then only you can understand. See, generally what happens in a normal year? Let's take a normal year. Everything is good. Generally, coast near South America, specifically Peru, Chile, this remains cold. When this remains cold, there is a lot of upwelling of water. Upwelling means water will come from below to above so that it can provide nutrients to the fish that are present over here. And that means healthy fisheries. But in El Nino year, what happens that this region, which is generally cool, it suddenly becomes warm. And generally, this warm water, it is carried towards Australia in normal years. But in El Nino year, the westward blowing winds will weaken. Now, if the westward blowing winds will weaken, this mass of warm water will stay there. That means no upwelling. That means no proper fish catch for the fishermen. And this is El Nino year. In very layman terms, I am telling you. In depth, I have also covered it in one of my classes. You can watch that on StudyIQ IS English. But in layman's term, this is what it happens. And when this happens, due to convection, clouds will start forming. And when clouds will start forming here only, which should have formed here, rains will occur a lot over here and there will be drought-like conditions in Australia and other parts that should have received rainfall. So this is El Nino. What is the range of El Nino? Can El Nino be predicted? El Nino can never be predicted. There is a range of years. It can come at any time in the range of 4 to 7 years. And there is no possible solution to prediction. We can now, of course, understand about how it works when it sets up. But we do not know when it is going to come again. That means after 2016, we saw El Nino in this particular year, 2023. That is why it is so hot. And that is why rainfall is getting suppressed in August because of El Nino only. It has been predicted by IMD. But we do not know when it is going to come again. It may come earlier than 4 to 7 years, but this is the general range, 4 to 7 years only. So, this is El Nino. El Nino cannot be predicted. Always keep that in mind. For the first time ever, yes, it was in the year 1997 to 98 when El Nino was for the first time ever studied scientifically from start to end. El Nino brings rain to South America. I have already told you that because of convection, clouds start forming in that region only and there will be rainy conditions. And it is accompanied by malaria, cholera, all sorts of infested diseases that are, available after the floods. Then scientists actually use the Ocean Nino Index to see how much deviation has occurred in the ocean from the normal temperature. It is not used to predict El Nino. Forget about it. So C is the not correct one. This will be the correct answer. And during an El Nino event, the westward blowing winds along the equator, they weaken. So this phenomenon can be understood by this perspective. Option C is the correct answer over here. Let's move forward. With respect to the scheduled tribes, consider the following statements. The process to include tribes in the ST list begins with the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. That means if I have to decide a tribe has to become a scheduled tribe or not, this will start with the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. Next, the President has the power to notify tribes in accordance with the Article 341 of the Constitution. Now, what do we have to see? Which of the statements given above is or are correct? Recently, the Pahadis and other very important tribes such as Gadda Brahmin, Koli, Padari tribe, Pahadi ethnic group, these are supposed to enter the scheduled tribe list. But the Bakarwas and other tribes are saying that how is it possible? They are well-to-do. Why should they be, described as a tribe? And they have also said that we will create Manipur-like conditions if you do not take this particular bill back. So this is what they are saying. So the process to include tribes in the ST list, it actually begins with the state or the union territory which it is concerned with. Then it is sent to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. After that, it is sent to the Registrar General of India. Then it is sent to the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe. then to the cabinet government, and this is the process. Again, I will repeat. First, the state or the union territory, supposedly it's Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh's state government will decide which names to send to the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Ministry of Tribal Affairs, after scrutiny, it will send it to the Registrar General of India. Registrar General of India will scrutinize it further, then they will send it to the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. After that, it will be sent to the cabinet, and the cabinet will finally tell the president about it. The president after that has the powers under Article 342 Clause 1 and not 341 to notify such tribes. Okay. So first statement is incorrect, second is also incorrect. Which ones are correct? Neither one nor two will be the correct answer. Now I have already told you about this, so let's move forward. I have also told you about this. See, as per the 1931 census, scheduled tribes are termed as backward tribes living in the excluded and partially excluded areas. After independence, we did not have a proper description, so we used the census of 1931 to reach that conclusion, which should be described as tribes and which shouldn't be. Now, in Article 366, Clause 25 of the Constitution, there is now a process to define scheduled tribes. Scheduled tribes means such tribes or tribal communities or parts of or group within such tribes or tribal communities as deemed under Article 342 of the to be the scheduled tribes for the purpose of this Constitution. Now see, there is no set criteria that a scheduled tribe should be this, a scheduled tribe should be that. If they are, not performing well in this category, they should be termed as scheduled tribe. If they are less in population, something like that. No, only the process has been given that who will do it. It is the president who will do it. So there is no set criteria in the Constitution, but just a process. Remember that. Also, according to Article 342 Clause 1, it empowers the President of India to notify tribes or groups as scheduled tribes in relation to the state or the union territory, of course in consultation with the governor of that state. Next, consider the following statements. Please answer this question well. I have told you about this many times. So the availability of sunrise on the moon is a must when the lander of the Chandrayaan-3 makes a soft landing on the moon. It is crucial so that the solar panels of the Chandrayaan-3 remain charged and the rover can go around. So we have to choose the correct answer using these codes. Chandrayaan-3. On this, our hopes have been put or stationed. Why? Because if it will be successful, we will be one of an elite group of countries to have a lander and a rover on the moon, specifically South Pole of the moon. South Pole is a very important pole for us, remains in the dark most of the time because of sheer synchronization between the Earth and the moon's rotation capacities. But why do we want to go to the South Pole? Because the fossils there are untouched. Beautifully, it is untouched. It is very important that we exploit these fossils so that we can know about the origin of the universe. And other important minerals are also situated there. So that is why it is important for India. See, right now, the thing is that Chandrayaan-3, it has left the orbits of the Earth and it has entered the lunar orbit, and this is known as lunar orbit insertion. That means, one thing I have told you more than enough, is that the Chandrayaan is not making a direct travel to the moon. Direct travel would need a lot of fuel. It takes just 4 days to reach there. Our Chandrayaan-3 is going to take approximately 40 days, 40 to 42 days. And we are using the gravity and also the firing of the proper thrusters. So this is why we are not going directly, but we are moving from orbit to orbit. This is the orbit maneuvering that was done by the ISRO. From one orbit to another, from one orbit to another. 5 orbits we raised, then we left the Earth's orbit, and then we have entered the lunar orbit. Here also, this is not the way that Chandrayaan will move. No, it will go from orbit to orbit, orbit closer, very slowly. And then it will land on the South Pole on the moon. We need sunlight for that, because the solar panels that have been attached to this particular lander and rover and Chandrayaan-3, what happens, it will make sure that energy is being supplied to the Chandrayaan. And if there will be no sunlight, it is supposed to land in August, specifically 23rd to 24th August. If there will not be any sort of sunlight for the rover and the lander to work, so that soft landing can be done, proper energy could be provided for soft landing, then it will be done in September. Okay, so from that perspective, you have to understand that sunlight is very important. The availability of sunrise on the moon is very important. It is important that it stays there so that the solar panels of the Chandrayaan-3 remain charged and the rover can go around. So both the statements are correct, and statement 1 is the correct explanation of statement 2. This is the correct answer. Now this is the south pole of the moon where we have to land. Moving on, the soft landing has been planned according to the availability of the sun, and more solar panels have been attached to it so that proper landing can be done. Consider the following statements. On July 28, 2023, the Earth saw its first plastic overshoot day. India ranks second in the mismanaged waste index. Just 12 countries in the world are responsible for 52% of the whole mismanaged plastic waste. So how many statements given above is or are correct? See, what is plastic overshoot? Plastic overshoot means the Earth has more plastic generation that it could be managed. Okay, this is plastic overshoot, like we have the Earth overshoot. Plastic overshoot here, it is based on the mismanaged waste index, in which India ranks 4th. So on 28 July 2023, the Earth for the first time ever reached its plastic overshoot day. The first is correct, second is incorrect. And there are just 12 countries, including India, who are responsible for 52% of the entire mismanaged plastic waste. First is correct, second is incorrect, third is correct. How many are correct? 2 only will be the correct answer. This all has been found out by Swiss-based research consultancy Earth Action through their report 2023 Plastic Overshoot Day. And I have already told you about this statement. Nearly this much tons of additional plastic waste will end up in nature this year. It has also been suggested that even if we go by the current legislations, by the current capacity of waste management, but if we continue on generating plastic like this, it will triple by the year 2040. This is what it has found. India, China, Brazil, Indonesia, Thailand, Russia, Mexico, USA, Saudi Arabia, DRC, Iran and Kazakhstan. These are the 12 countries that are responsible for the 52% of the entire mismanaged plastic waste. Overshoot day for India specifically, that was for the world. 28 July, right? Yeah, July. It was for the Earth, the entire Earth. But for India, it has already been January 6, 2023. So this is also a prelims fact you have to remember. Now India ranks 4th on the mismanaged waste index. I also covered the news analysis for important issues. You can tune into this as well. Today I will cover the Haryana issue, the new issue. Moving on. This is a practice question for you. The Muslim Women's Rights Day is celebrated on. These are the given options. You have to choose correctly. The ones who have answered it correctly will get their names spoken in the next class. I would also like to suggest one thing, that please do not, your username is such that I cannot pronounce it. Try to write your names as well. Okay. So yes, Simran has answered it correctly. Riya, Mandeep, Komal, Shubham, Mihir, Tejas, Preeti, Shubhendu, NDA, Siddharth, Vignesh, Anant, even Racha, Padmashri, Abhishek, Kushik, Kushi, Sushmita, Om, Priya, Prosit, Sneha, Bachu, Ashish, Malinath, Shubhang, and Kasturi. Temporary creation, Kaushik, Kushiyadav, Ishita. You all have answered it correctly. Congratulations. Those who did not get their names here, please write your names in the lower part of the answer so that I can take your names as well. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. Stay updated.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।